Good morning, students. First, I wish you all the best for your first midterm test. Next week, started the first midterm test. So, your portion for the science one is unit one measurement. Okay, so this class we are learning about first lesson measurement revision class. Okay, so initially what is the measurement, okay, and what is the fundamental and derived quantities is always explained for the previous classes. So this class is also for explained for revision for also for first lesson only. Okay, okay. If you have fundamental and derived quantities, there are the two types of quantities. You know, the fundamental quantities and derived quantities. And fundamental quantities, you know the definition. If it is a quantity which cannot be expressed the term of any other quantities is called the fundamental quantities. Okay, so there is no expression for any other quantity is called them fundamental quantities. Okay, so if you examples given for the fundamental quantities, and there are the seven fundamental quantities: length, mass, time, temperature, electric current, and luminous intensity, and amount of suspension. Derived quantities. What is the derived quantities? If physical quantities which can be obtained by the by multiplying and dividing of the mathematically combining of fundamental quantities is called the derived quantities. Okay, so if a combining of the fundamental quantities is called derived quantities. So if called the derived quantities, if examples for of derived quantities is already you know area, volume, length, speed, that is derived quantities of values. Okay, so how can you measuring the area? So area is measuring by meter into meter. Okay, given our one examples, a plot of derived in multiplying length into breadth. So length into breadth is if measuring of the plot, so it's called the area of measuring that. Okay, some of the derived quantities and if SI units. So area, if length into breadth, meter into meter, the unit square meter. Okay, and volume, length into breadth into height, and if a unit of meter cube, and speed, distance into time. Okay, and electric current, electric electric charge, electric current into time. Okay, so ampere second is a coulomb of another unit is scientist name. Okay, density. So density is a mass into volume, kilogram by meter cube or kilogram per meter per minus 3. So it's called the derived quantities as some values. Okay, and if you calculate the values for problem 1, if your area of the square, if you what is the area of the 10 square each side of 1 meter. Okay, to 10 square each side of 1 meter. If you calculate the area of the square equal to side into side 1 meter into 1 meter, so 1 meter square. Okay, so one already is given 1 meter square is it 10 square now. So if area of 10 square 1 square meter into 10, so 10 meter square, that is the value. Okay, now if you same for rough, if you calculate the find the area of following up sphere. Okay, so if you sphere shape of the, how can you calculate the area? So area of sphere, if pi r square, that is a formula. So if you are given for of length is 12 meter and also for a circle of radius 7 meter. Okay, so if you first calculate the length and breadth in for linear of shape 12 into 448, and the area of circle pi r square, pi value 22 by 7, so 22 by 7 into 7 square, so 154 meter square. Okay, and same for if you are plane figures, if it is in a diagram of figure and area square, if you calculate the square is mean side into side. Okay, if you calculate the rectangular is mean length into breadth. If you calculate the circle is mean pi into radius square. If a triangle is mean half into base into height, that is a formula a square l into b pi r square and half into bh. Okay, so if it's the if a half into bh, suppose if you calculate the third concept also half into bh, if a 6 into 8 24 meter. Okay, so the next one, the area of irregular shape of figures. Before if you explain the concept, is a regular shape of object. Suppose irregular shape of object, how can you calculate the area? If it then a graphical method explanation above then can be used of the area of irregular shape is figure. Okay, so if you're using of a graphical method only then using for of irregular shape of area. Okay, that is a concept of area and volume. What is a volume? So definition: the amount of space occupied by a three-dimensional object is called of volume. So volume of formula surface into height. Okay. So if a unit of volume is meter cube, because if a surface area length into breadth into height, so meter square into meter cube. Okay. And if a irregular shape of object, volume of irregular shape of object. As a case of area, the volume of irregular shape of object, if is then determined by using of approximate formula. Okay, so it's also for of find the formula. Volume of theta around 5 value 22 by 7, cube side is 3 centimeter. Okay, so if the leaf concept is already activity 1 is explained here. Okay, so if your value of how can if you calculate then overall closed off pointer, and if is remaining of pointer also is calculate the last class. Okay, now um, volume of liquid. So how can is calculate the volume of liquid? If a liquid if you then defined shape, if you taken off vessel, that is the shape of the liquid. So determine the case when you pour into the container, taking the volume of the container. If a volume of any liquid in equal space to filling can it then measure it using of measuring of cylinder. Okay, if maximum of value of liquid is container hold now the capacity of container. Okay, so volume of liquid is equal to volume of space filling the container. Okay, so if you taken of 1 liter is 1000 of cc or centimeter cube, and 1000 of ml is equal to 1 liter is already asking of 1 liter equal to 1000 of cc or centimeter cube, 100,000 ml equal to 1 liter. Okay, so if you liquid of second, if you then the cubic volume of formula, the cubic a side into side, so a cube, and cuboid l into breadth into height into length lph is then sphere. If is then radius of value 4 by 3 of pi r square. So if cylinder pi r square into h. Okay, so that is a formula for important formula for volume of formula. Okay, so if irregular shape of object, so irregular shape of object is also for determine the measuring cylinder of water. Okay, so if we discuss the earlier of the case, area is a no formula to determine the volume of irregular shape of object. Okay, before this explain here. And density. So what is the density? The water in a beaker, if you drop in iron ball and a car into the water, so what do you observe? What do you observe is mean if you then very heavy metals is mean if you then if you impressed in, so very light material is mean if you then flooded off the density of object. Okay, so that is the density of concept. Okay, high metal, heavy weight metal if you then impressed in, if you low weight metal if you then coating of the water. Okay, definition of density. So density of the substance is defined as the mass of substance containing the unit of volume. So what is a formula? If a density is defined as the mass of substance contained of unit of volume. So if a density equal to mass by volume, so formula d equal to m by v, mass by volume. If m is a whole masses, v is a volume. Okay, if your formula d equal to m by v. And if a unit of density, if a unit of density if a kilogram divided by meter cube, or cgs method density gram by centimeter cube. Okay, density of different metals, if you then not only for the same metals, if you are having, if a different metals having mean, if a different metals have the different densities, if with higher density is called of denser materials, lower density is called of rarer material. Okay, so what is the denser material and rarer material? If in high masses is called denser, low masses is called rarer. Okay, so if you given for some examples, so one more question: the gas, the material of air 1.2, kerosene 800, water is 1000. Okay, aluminum is 2700, and copper is 8900, gold is 19,000 or 300. So that is the value of some of the materials for rarer and denser of values. Okay, so if a problem 1.4 and 1.5 is also for 2 more question. If a solid cylinder mass of 280 kgs, volume of 400, if you then calculate the density of cylinder volume, so if you 280 divided by 4, 70 of values. Okay, so also for 1.5, 1.6 for the same values. Okay, so if you measuring for the distance of cylindrical bodies. Okay, so measuring for the distance of cylindrical bodies. So if you 1.5, 1.6, 1.6, if you're discussing for the class, and the density of values, if a d equal to m by v, that is a formula. Okay, so we see the next class for the next class.